Acotar. So the other day I was sat at my desk looking at a blank Clip Studio screen thinking, what am I going to make for my newest video? And I couldn't really quite figure out what I wanted to do. And I turned around and I looked at my bookshelf with all my fantasy and art books, and I saw these, and I've had these for quite a while and I love this series, and I was looking at them and I thought, well, I've been making a lot of corsets lately, so what if I turned book characters from Acotar into corset designs? A bit odd, but I think it could be a really interesting challenge to sort of convert the characteristics of these people into corset designs. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take 4 characters from the first book. I'm not going to go through the whole series because we'd be here all day. Well, this is my rebound version, so it looks a little different from the original colours, but that's what it looks like. Yeah, so I'm going to pick Feyre, Tamlin, Lucian and Rhysand, and we're going to do some research, probably some Pinterest research, having a look at different ideas and sort of different fabrics, and yeah, we'll see what I come up with. But before I start, I'm going to pop up a quick spoiler warning now. For anyone who hasn't read the Acotar series, there will be spoilers in this video. I will try not to spoil the story as much as possible, but there are going to be certain character art images and images from my mood board that I'm going to pop up on the screen that will spoil the character designs and maybe some aspects of the story for later along in the series. So just putting that out there for you now. If anyone doesn't want to get spoiled, the series is like 10 years old, but if anyone doesn't want to get spoiled, there you go. So with all that in mind, we're going to have to start off with our first character, Tamlin. So aside from the MC Feyre, Tamlin is the first major character that we're introduced to in this series. I could not find a suitable image to bring up for Tamlin, but here's the closest representation of him. I think we can all agree that this character's personality and looks reflect Tamlin's quite well. So in the story, Tamlin is from the Spring Court, so a lot of his design aesthetic is based around nature. He also gives me a little bit of a druid vibe, so we're going to lean into that a little bit when looking for inspo images. His colour palette consists of greens for spring, gold for his gold mask, pinks and reds for roses, and maybe some other sort of spring/druidy elements mixed into that as well. Now I've collated all my images, I'm going to start designing. With Tamlin's corset design, I wanted to start out with something a bit more of a traditional shape that you'd probably see on a more modern style fashion corset, but I also wanted to add another element of his design, which is a bolero. This will not only help picture him as more of a high class character, after all he is a high lord, so he's got a bit more of the cash to splash, but it will also help move more room around for me to add embroidery and some other elements to his design as well. Starting with his bolero, I wanted to design to reflect a more practical sort of archer inspired shape made from maybe a green tan leather and some gold eyelets and maybe laced up the centre front as well. For the main corset itself, the fabric that I would chosen would be a tightly woven cotton twill, and I wanted to do a grassy plains design which would be printed onto the fabric. Obviously I'm using a lot of greens, especially light greens, to reflect a more spring-like colour palette. Now back to the bolero, I definitely wanted to incorporate some embroidery, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it, so I played around with some ideas of large embroidered leaves in green and gold. Then I thought about adding some rose appliques, but I wasn't really happy with the idea of either of them, so I've settled for a light pink vine-like embroidery over the bolero. It's subtle enough that it fits with the bolero as a standalone element, but it doesn't distract from the main printed design of the corset. I wanted to add something gold to represent his mask, and I'm pretty sure the colour gold features quite a bit in his outfits and the decor of the Spring Court, so I wanted to reserve the gold for the bias tape trim, and this trim is going to go around all the edges of the bolero, and it will go on the edges of the top and bottom of the corset as well. And there you have it, our first of 4 designs is done! Following on from Tim Tam, we have his bestie, Lucien. Lucien's design was one that I was really looking forward to doing. He's not my favourite character, but he does have an awesome character design and colour palette. The colour palette that I'll be going for Lucien is oranges, browns, gold and copper. Even though he lives in Spring Court, Lucien is from the Autumn Court, so that's where I'm going to start gathering my inspo images. Lucien also has a copper eye, so I would really like the idea of adding sort of copper, maybe embellishments or a texture into his design as well. As for the fabrics, I would like to include a burnt umber or brown cotton twill or linen textured fabric to reflect his more down-to-earth persona. For his corset silhouette itself, I'm opting for more of an unboned bodice instead of a heavily boned corset. I think this choice will pair well as a practical option, and it also links in with him being quite an active person. I originally designed this corset that I'm now using as inspo because I really didn't like how it turned out, but there are some things that I can take from it to incorporate in this design. Starting off with the bodice shape, I'm going to go with a square neckline with a centre front closure and eyelets that would be gold or copper, and this would be laced up with a ribbon or twill cord. I want to include two different types of fabrics in this design, so I've split it with the top half being embossed leather and the bottom half being a stiffened cotton twill. I have also opted for boning channels on each side of the front centre closure to just reinforce that opening. For the trim, I opted for a gold bias tape around all the edges of the bodice, and there's also some gold/copper embroidery to tie in the two together within the design. After all, Lucien is a high fae, so I have to add some sort of ornate or whimsical aspect to his outfit as well. I finished the design off with a lace detailing on the shoulder with some studs, just to give more of a sort of practical effect to that as well. I didn't struggle that much with the second iteration of Lucien's design, but I think this one fits him a lot better. So now, following on from Lucien, we're gonna go to one of my favourite characters in the whole series, Rhysand. So Rhysand's design is one that I actually really struggled with. I didn't think I would because I love his aesthetic and he's one of my favourite characters. I hate to say it, but Tamlin's design was actually the easiest to do out of all four of these designs, and that really did shock me. I wasn't expecting that to happen. Rhysand is a High Lord of the Night Court, so his aesthetic leans more towards a darker side of things like deep purples, blues and obviously black, and I took a lot of inspo images from whimsigoth sort of aesthetic and the Night Court, and a lot of celestial imagery and goth architecture. For fabrics, I chose a lot of embroidered brocades, silks and satins and velvets. When Rhysand is referenced in the book, he's described as very well dressed, so I wanted the fabrics I chose to reflect his very well presented and put together persona. For the corset design, I wanted to go for something a bit more theatrical and regal, considering he's a High Lord of the Night Court, so he's sort of very dark and mysterious and quite a different looking character, so I wanted the design to reflect that. So I put a deepish V shape in the centre front and split the centre and side panels with lacing details and eyelets. Now to the actual decoration of the corset. I really struggled with this. There was so much imagery that I could have incorporated into this design that it became a little bit overwhelming, and I wasn't sure what would look good. I firstly wanted to incorporate the design of the mountain and the 3 stars as an embroidery or print, but I thought that much heavy imagery would clash with the fabric choices that I'd picked, so I went for a large embroidered star instead. I also wanted to add Feyre's tattoo design as well as an embroidery element, but I also wanted to save that for her own corset design as well. But I did end up adding a similar sort of swirly design to Rhysand's corset, considering he has very similar looking tattoos. I also toyed with the idea of some sort of beaded detail hanging from the bottom of the corset, very Starfall-esque, but I ultimately didn't think that would fit well with his corset design. So yeah, I don't really have very fond or strong opinions towards this corset design. I thought this would be my easiest one to do, but it turned out to be the most difficult, and looking back at the footage now, I actually really liked the first sketch design more than the finished version. If I was to do this again, it would probably look very, very different, but for now this is how Rhysand's design looks. Okay, so now to accompany Rhysand's design, we're going to go on to our fourth and final character, Feyre. It's safe to say that Feyre goes through some pretty extensive physical changes in this book, and these changes not only obviously affect her physical appearance but also her style. She has so many outfits and styles in this series, but I decided to go for a corset design that was partly inspired by her Starfall dress and her home in Valeris. So let's get into it. For the mood board, I leant more into the Starfall side of her aesthetic, with a mix of winter and celestial silvery imagery. For fabrics, I wanted to pick something that represented her at the time of Starfall and where she was in Valeris at the time. So similar fabric selection to Rhysand's, I wanted to pick embroidered silk brocades, velvets, and I also picked this shiny type chiffon fabric and satin bias tapes and ribbons. When designing the overall silhouette of the corset, I opted for a corset / top mix, so the top half is more of a top with capped shoulders and a small V in the centre, and the bottom half is more of a traditional sort of fashion corset, and this would be laced up at the back. For the design of the top half, I wanted to go with an embroidered silk brocade. The embroidery design that I went for was in the same style of Feyre's tattoos, so very swirly dark swirls. The colour palette of Feyre's design leans towards more dark blues and a pop of light blues. For the main corset itself, I went with a plain satin fabric with a large embroidered star in the centre front. I also added a small centre laced closure to add a bit more of a decorative texture to the design. To finish the design off, I added light blue satin bias tape around the bottom of the corset and 2 dark blue satin bows for either side of the hips. And there we have it, all of our designs are done! And there we have it, I finished turning all of our Acotar characters into corset designs. Did you think I did a good job? Let me know down in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe, it would really mean a lot. And yeah, stay cozy, and I'll see you all next time.